Today, we are going to look at a game of witches and wizards, casting spells and managing a resource system, published by Wizards of the Coast. No, not that one. This time, we are taking a look at the Harry Potter trading card game, or HPTCG as the wiki calls it. For those in the audience who have somehow not been exposed to the Harry Potter intellectual property, it is based on a series of books about the titular character going to wizard school and fighting against a Dark Lord who shall not be named. Here is the exact point where I got bored with the books, but the focus of this video is on the licensed card game anyway. I remember playing this as a kid, but only very briefly. I think I bought a total of 1 booster pack beyond the 2-player starter set, and all I can remember from it was pulling a Northern Ridgeback card, which I left in my copy of Magical Creatures and Where to Find Them, the red one, by the way. But now, I can't seem to find that book either. This is going to be a pretty novel experience for me, so here is the live commentary from the unboxing. Let's crack right into it. It's got a nice box, and inside the box is everything else, which I'm gonna open with scissors. Looks like 2 decks, a set of damage counters, advanced rules. Ooh, a lot of detailed rules. I'll be going over the actual gameplay and rules in the next section. Well, this is nice, well-printed, well-detailed rulebook. And a card list. That's always nice. Also, in the box is this, absolutely giant playmat. I'll try to get a big picture of that to show off all the detail. It looks like it's got a lot of the rulebook printed on it too. Anyway, on to the actual cards. I actually have a lot of trouble with this, and I ruined my first copy of Relinquished from Structure Deck Pegasus because I couldn't get the plastic off, and I cut into it with a sharp object, which is a little unfortunate. Okay, first deck has Hermione, some creature cards, some transfiguration spells, some care for magical creature spells, quite a lot of creatures actually. And then the basic lands, and that's it for the deck. Character card's nice, pretty shiny. We got Hermione Granger and Draco Malfoy, which is an interesting choice. Maybe it'd be cliche to pick Harry Potter or someone else from the Gryffindor gang. I don't know. Where's my Ron Weasley? Ooh. And in the Draco deck, we obviously have Draco Malfoy as the wizard. Looks like charms cards. More creatures. Charms. Here are the Charms basic lands. And Care for Magical Creature cards. So there's only 3 of the 4 colors in the starter set. There's no green cards, which is a little bit weird, but that's okay. Green is for potions, by the way. Now, let's start talking about gameplay. Before getting into turn structure and gameplay, I want to have a quick overview of the types of cards, starting with the game's most distinguishing feature, character cards. You are represented by a witch or wizard in-game, with each character offering its own benefit. This reminds me of the commander from the EDH or commander formats in Magic, but you can also play other character cards which do not represent you. There is a legendary like rule to prevent paradoxes of 2 of the same character being out at the same time, like with what happens with the Time Turner in The Prisoner of Azkaban. There is a suspicious overlap when it comes to the design of the 2 games, so Magic the Gathering will be referenced a lot. Characters beyond your avatar are sort of like planeswalkers from Magic, which is the best way I can briefly describe them. Like in Magic, there is a physical resource card that generates the equivalent to mana. Lessons allow you to cast spells, play locations, begin adventures, and whatnot. Unfortunately, like in Magic, this resource is still in the main deck. They come in 4 types: Charms, Potions, Care for Magical Creatures, and Transfiguration. So only 4 basic lands in this game. How original. Later, Quidditch lessons were added in the Quidditch expansion, along with match cards which use the new lessons, bringing the total to 5 mana sources. The lessons power the other card types, but unlike in Magic, there is no concept of color weight, so you only need 1 lesson which corresponds to the color of the casting cost, while other lessons can provide the remaining mana. Spells are single use, being sent to the discard pile after being cast. Creatures stay on the battlefield and automatically attack, somehow having even less attackers' initiative than creatures in Magic. Instead of power and toughness, creatures have damage dealt each turn and health, which is persistently tracked through the use of damage counters. Artifacts, items, remain on the field after being cast and offer various benefits. Adventure cards are interesting, posing upon the opponent some sort of restriction and a way to circumvent it. At the end of the adventure, there is also some sort of reward. Location cards are like how old field spells worked in Yu-Gi-Oh!, with only 1 location being active at a time. Finally, there are those match cards, but they are not included in the starter set. The game has a loosely defined turn structure, divided into phases. In order, there is a before draw phase, where some card effects happen, a draw phase, where a single card is drawn, a combat phase, where all your creatures which can attack deal damage to the opponent, then a main phase, where a total of 2 actions can be performed. These actions are playing a lesson, creature, spell, item, match, or location card, drawing an extra card, or, for 2 actions apiece, playing a character or adventure card. This offers a lot of decision-making space, with the question of whether to spend more actions to ramp by playing more lessons, or to dig deeper into the deck, being an interesting choice which works well in both the early and late game. There is no exhausted state for lessons, and I believe for creatures or items as well, so you can very easily pull off 2 big spells in the same turn so long as you have enough lessons. The action system reminds me of a bit of a hybrid between the 1 land per turn restriction and the normal summon in Yu-Gi-Oh!, both of which are invisible and intangible resources available to the player. But in this game, the action system restricts play considerably more. I imagine being limited to 2 actions per turn cuts down on the time each turn takes considerably. And I think that is a good thing if you look at the vintage format in Magic, or most of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! After the main phase is an end phase, where end of turn effects trigger. The win condition of this game is deck out. Damage done to a player is in the form of cards being milled from the top of the deck, which Kodak points out as a critical game flaw, and understandably so, as not being allowed to play your cards creates quite the negative gameplay experience. But I think the design rationale was to simplify the game, by removing a bit of bookkeeping. With the deck acting as the life pool, this removes the need to track life totals with paper or a spin down, since counting the number of cards to discard is easier than having to subtract damage from the life total, which might be a hint at the intended demographic. This game is relatively simple, and the back of the box says for 9 and up, while Magic has a T for teen equivalent rating. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has an ages 3 and up rating, but that is probably just for choking hazards, as the actual gameplay is quite complex. I do want to mention that simplicity and a low barrier to entry in a game are not intrinsically negative elements in game design, as one of my game design mantras is to eliminate complexity so long as it does not remove depth from the gameplay experience. Easy to pick up and near impossible to master is a noble design goal, where the skill ceiling is asymptotic, in which it never stops rewarding those with greater game knowledge and decision-making ability. But returning from that distraction, I think the relatively short-lived Harry Potter TCG is good for a game night if you happen to have them, but probably not worth buying in since it is 20 years out of print. Online, this is selling for about $40, but thankfully these were a donation to the channel. Which is nice, because I have been wanting to show off this book that I got from the restricted section of the Hogwarts library. It has a bit of a warning on the cover. Thy flesh consumed, thy soul devoured. Pretty standard boilerplate for this sort of thing. But I have been dying to know what secrets lie within.